This is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. And this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, right here on this beautiful October 3rd, Thursday, October 3rd. We're coming to you live from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios, and we're live on the radio at 98.7, 1420 AM. We're live streaming at 987radio.com. We're live on social media at the Rock Health and Wellness Center's page on Facebook, on the YouTube, and on X. So, I hope you guys had a fantastic day. It's been a great week at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. Got October kicked off. Got past 31 months without having any sugar. Got some good shows going on this week. This is our week of food, and we've been breaking down food all week long. And we've been doing our Eating for Health class our Power of Food, we call it. And so Monday night we took health to church, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, we've been working through this Power of Food class and doing it a little bit different than we've done it in the past. And so we're going to continue with that tonight. And then if we get it finished, then we'll get into, I've got some menus and some ideas on how to put food together. And so we'll either get to that tonight or we'll get to it tomorrow. Either way, we'll get it all taken care of. So a couple things I wanted to go over. The very first thing I wanted to go over, because it came up a couple times during the day, and some of you don't even know what's going on. Some of you don't care about what's going on. Some people are freaking out about what's going on. Let me just present a piece of health information for you. There's things that you can control, and there's things that you can't control. And it's real easy to get caught up in these crazy emotional decisions based on all the stuff that's going on in the world. And I know a lot of you guys are mature people and you won't have any problem with this at all. But for everyone else, I think maybe we just ought to take a deep breath. We ought to calm down a little bit. We don't need to go buy 14 rolls of packages of toilet paper and water bottles. Toilet paper and water bottles are made in the United States. They're not shipped around. If you guys are worried about the shipments coming in, they're not shipped from anywhere. They're right here. We're not going to run out of toilet paper. We're not going to run out of water bottles. Everything's going to be fine. There's a bunch of people that are trying to stir us up. And let me tell you how that is for your health. It's getting you into your unknown brain. And your unknown brain is where you come up with anxiety, depression. You get acid reflux. You get digestive problems. You can't sleep. You start having immune system issues. All of that stuff happens when you get stressed out about things that are unknown. And there's a lot of people that make a lot of money stirring things up about unknown things. So I'm not trying to preach to anybody. I'm just trying to share health information about the world that's going on, whether it's Israel and Russia and Iran and all the rest of them, or whether it's the longshoremen or whether it's the hurricane in North Carolina, or like all this stuff, right? If you got some sort of authority and you could do something about it, then get after it and do something about it. If you don't have any authority to do anything about it, if you can make it curious, then that would be great. Just say to yourself, it's like, hey, I wonder how this is going to work out. It's unknown, but I wonder how it's going to work out. That'll at least keep you from getting sick. If you really want to do the best for your family, if you really want to do the best for your society, if you really want to do the best for your country, stay well. We've already been through this once in COVID. The reason I'm on this show right now is because of having a conversation with the mayor, trying to get the mayor to calm down, trying to get the people at City Hall to calm down. And it's like, you guys we're getting out of control, and it's not healthy. And one of the sentences was, Jason, all I can tell you is that there's 200 people or something. I don't remember what the numbers were. There's 200 people in the hospital, and about 180 of them or whatever, 93% of them are unvaccinated. And I said, yes, Mayor, but you got 3,000 cases of COVID in your town, and there's less than 3% in the hospital. So you got 97% of the people that have COVID aren't in the hospital. So, and I'm not trying to talk about COVID tonight. My sentence was, why don't we teach the 200 people who are in the hospital how to stay out of the hospital? That would be curious. Like, that would be like, wow, that'd be a different idea. Why don't we teach the people who went into the hospital how to get well, instead of making statements like, hey, it's not like we're asking you to eat broccoli. Right? That came out of one of our guys' mouth. Just wear your mask. It's not like we're asking you to eat broccoli. And I'm like, why not? Are we not asking them to eat broccoli? That's what a leader would do in a time like this. Like, hey, let's be well. So just wanted to say that because I had a couple people that are stressed out about that today, and they're going to make themselves sick. It's if whatever they're doing over there with Russia and Israel and all that stuff, I can't do anything about it. Whatever they're doing with the longshoremen, I can't do anything about it. Jesus knows where I am. It's like, hey, it's like, it's not, if my provision comes from ships in the ocean, I'm probably going to be in trouble. If my provision comes from the one that put me here, I think I'm going to be just fine. I'm not going to run out of the things that I need. I'm 53 years old and never run out of them for a day in my life. I'm pretty sure if we stick to it, then we'll be fine. Okay? That's all my preaching. That's all my preaching. That's my commentary to start the show. Second thing I wanted to go over is we talked in the last 2 nights about insulin resistance and proteins and insulin receptors and glucose gates on the cell wall, right? But I had a comment this morning about one of my patients asked me, what about does neuropathy? Does any of this stuff deal with neuropathy? And I just wanted to take just a second and make sure that I have made sure that I have covered, since we're going through all this stuff this week, that those small blood vessels have, and I've got a picture for you radio people. I've got a picture of a blood vessel that I drew, and it's got cells on each side. You can just imagine if you put a bunch of like circles together, ovals, put them together and make a tube, and that's like a blood vessel. If you fill that blood vessel up with glucose is going to diffuse across the membrane. It's going to diffuse. And so that glucose is going to just diffuse into that blood vessel. And when it does that, it's going to bring water. There's a mechanism, but what you need to know is it's going to fill up that cell with water, which is going to make that cell swell. It's going to make that cell swell up. And when that happens, with all that water and that cell swelling up, it's going to decrease the amount of blood that can flow through there. And now what you're going to have is you're going to have some clogged up arteries. And you can see them sometime in your leg, because they're like, if you look down your leg and you see a bunch of purple veins like that in your leg, that's little bitty tiny blood vessels are getting all clogged up down there, and that blood is getting stuck in there. And now it can't diffuse down. And you've got the nerves that are running along there. You got the nerves that are running along, and they're made up. They've got cells too. And the same thing happens with them. And when you get down to your feet, those are going to swell up. And when they swell up, you're going to have really painful feet. You're not going to want to stand on your feet. And that's all by diffusion. And what is diffusion? It's when you burn toast in the kitchen and you can smell the burned toast in the bedroom. The smoke just diffused through the house, right? And you didn't open the door and let the smoke in. It just diffused through, came underneath the door, and it was there. And so that's what happens in those small blood vessels. So I wanted to go over that, because anytime you increase your glucose, then you're going to increase the chances of that happening down there and cause that swelling. My dad went through that. His feet were so agonizingly in pain that because he was He just kept eating that sugar, and that sugar kept filling up those blood vessels, and it kept filling up those nerves, and he wouldn't put his feet on the ground. He wouldn't put his feet on the ground because it hurt so bad to put his feet on the ground. So now he's stuck in his chair and he won't move his feet. And that created all kinds of secondary problems down the road for him. His sciatic nerve problems, his stenosis in his low back problems, the lack of brain function problems. It was a miserable, miserable existence for the last about 4 years of his life. And it was the last 3 for sure. And it was some of it didn't have to happen. So my father-in-law, when he was dying of diabetes, we got up in the morning one morning, and my mother-in-law made pancakes, and he ate pancakes and syrup. And he's like, no, my blood sugar is fine. And then about 30 minutes after he ate that pancakes and syrup, I said, you should go check your blood sugar now. And he came back 30 minutes later, and it was at 300 because he had diabetes. He had insulin resistance. It was at 300. And I was like, now what's going on in your bloodstream? Can you imagine? Can you imagine Karo syrup? Can you imagine having so much sugar in your bloodstream that your blood is so thick, it's like Karo syrup? And your heart's trying to pump that thick, sticky blood through all those veins, and those veins are swelling up and bulging because they've got all that water in them. And now you're trying to pump that thick, sticky blood. And now what's happening? You're not getting oxygen into the tissue. You're not getting glucose into the tissue. You're losing fuel and activation. You're losing the nutrients that you need. And it causes your tissue to die. And then all hell breaks loose, right? Okay. Just know that's the mechanism that goes on with it. And the statement to me today was, well, my daughter deals with it, and she's had a really stressful life. And she's got all kinds of stuff wrong with her. And I'm like, yeah, well, one of the things that regulates some of that stuff is the adrenal gland, and aldosterone is one of your hormones. And that just gets all out of whack whenever when you're stressed out. Your brain, your amygdala is firing down to your adrenal glands, and then it's like, here we go, overwork. Okay, all right. So those are the 2 things I wanted to start with tonight, just to kind of catch us up from last night. Let me get this back up here. Take me just a second to put all this in. Hey, if you guys got questions and you want to send me a text, please do. If some of this stuff that we go over and you're just like, I didn't get that. Hey, Doc, I didn't get that. Would you say that again? Like I didn't quite catch what you were saying right there. So if you need me to, if you got a particular thing that you don't understand, if you've got something that you think I'm completely wrong about, any of that stuff is totally fine with me. If you need some help or you want some help and you'd like to have a conversation about it, then let me know. Okay. So, all right. So let's pick up where we left off last night. This was the slide we left off on. And we were just talking about inflammation. You eat corn and soy, your body turns that into arachidonic acid by the help of the COX enzymes. That's what Celebrex is. It's a COX inhibitor, right? Just go to your browser, go to Google or whatever you use, DuckDuckGo or whatever it is, and just say COX inhibitors. I will just see list of COX-2 inhibitors. And they'll just see if Celebrex is right there on the top. And then Elixib, I don't know what that is. That's another one. That's just like right there, drugs.com. That's the first one that showed up on the list. So that's COX inhibitors, right? So let me see if I can find another list that's a little bit longer. See what the NIH has to say and see if they have any of them. Commonly encountered COX-inhibiting drugs include the following. Shoot, naproxen's on there, meloxicam, ibuprofen, indomethacin, ketoprofen, aspirin. All those are on the list right there, right? So if you block that, then your body's going to use the LOX enzymes. It's going to kick that in, and you're going to get the leukotriene. You're going to get inflammation both ways, right? Okay, so let's move on, because this last part of it is really it really is important. Not like the rest of it wasn't, but this last part of it is maybe the reason that I became the world's biggest fan of fish oil, because of this, not just the inflammatory part, but this part right here, because this is a major component of what's going on. Okay, so we've got cells, and inside the cells we have organelles, and you got lysosomes, you got mitochondria, you got peroxisomes, you got all the Golgi apparatus, you got the endoplasmic reticulum. You remember all that from like biology in about 9th to 10th grade? You probably had to make a model of something. I think I made a model of mitochondria when I was in that grade, something like that. So we got all these organelles, and we've got this cell wall. And that cell wall, like we've talked about multiple times, is made up of omega-6 and 3 fatty acids. And we talked about the rigidity and the fluidity last night. You can blow through your shirt. You can take your sleeve, blow through your shirt. You can feel the air travel through your shirt. You got to be able to pass things through. Got to have channels. Got to get them through that cell wall, right? It's super important that happens. Mitochondria produce ATP. When I've explained this in the past, people start getting lost about right here, and I don't think it's that hard. I mean, maybe we don't understand anything about where energy comes from. Like, how do you turn on your lights? Like, where does the electricity come from that when you turn your lights on? Where does electricity come from? It's got to come from somewhere, right? It's not, there's not just like electricity plant. I mean, there is an electricity plant, but I'm talking about it like a vegetable. Like, there's a place that makes electricity or transfers electricity, or like, you got a power plant somewhere around your town. There's a power plant, and it's making the power that's causing all these lights to turn on, right? It's like there's an energy source somewhere. A battery it's not a good example. Trying to think. Maybe I don't need to think about it. ATP is the energy of the cell. ATP is the gasoline of the cell. If the cell was like your car, ATP is like the gasoline that's in your car. That is the molecule that your cell uses for energy. It's the power. And it's made by the mitochondria, which is the power plant of the cell. We know that, right? And we know that this mitochondria makes the ATP. It does it through a process. There's a process. It uses glucose usually, and it sends it through a process, and then it comes out the other side as ATP. And there's a couple different ways that happens, but that's kind of how that happens. But at the very same time that mitochondria produces ATP, it also produces what's called a free radical. And it's just for everyone's understanding, a free radical is a little irritated molecule that is missing an outer shell electron. It's like a simple way of thinking about it. It's just an irritated little molecule that wants. It's like a bratty little kid that wants a sticker. Like they want their ice cream cone. One time, Caitlin wouldn't eat her lunch because she wanted the ice cream cone. Leslie said, "You're not getting an ice cream cone unless you eat your lunch." That's back when we ate ice cream cones. And she didn't eat her lunch, so she didn't get an ice cream cone. She was like a little brat, okay? That's what a free radical is. It's like a little brat kid that throws a fit because it wants its way. It's not happy. And what it does is it turns around and attacks the mitochondria to get what it wants. It's a little violent little brat kid to get what it wants. That's what a free radical. So you got, now, why they happen at the same time is an interesting phenomenon. I'll ask God about that someday. I've asked him and he hadn't told me yet. So when I get up there, I'll try to figure that out. But why make ATP and a free radical simultaneously? And maybe somebody out there knows. If you guys know it, y'all can text me and let me know. Well, but so we got to have something to balance. We got to have something that's going to balance that free radical. We got to have something that balances that little bratty kid. We can't let them just have at it and wreak havoc inside the cell. And that's what an antioxidant is. So an antioxidant, it blocks mitochondrial damage by blocking free radicals from attacking mitochondria. There's an entire biochemistry that goes on with that description, but I'm not trying to get into the entire biochemistry. I don't even know all of it, but there's a certain amount of it that it would just be like even worse than this explanation is now. So it's really important that we get antioxidants is really the gist of it. We need antioxidants. Where do you get antioxidants from? You get them from blueberries. You get them from strawberries. You get them from raspberries. You get them from oranges. Those are places you could get them from. Red peppers and bell peppers is not, it's like all of them, orange, green, whatever. There's like any of those peppers. They've got antioxidants. There's lots of, you just think fruits and vegetables, you think antioxidants. I do. And mainly berries, mainly blueberries. The number one thing that I've ever read. It's like, eat your blueberries, right? So, but we got to learn a little bit more about that, okay? And the master antioxidant, the big daddy of them all, is glutathione. You got to get to that glutathione. That's the one that's it's like it's the wise old antioxidant master. It's like Mr. Miyagi. It's like the Mr. Miyagi of antioxidants. That's what glutathione is. And so glutathione is we need to build glutathione inside the cell from glutamate, L-cysteine, and glycine. Those are the things. But we can't just take a pill. We got to build it inside the cell. So let's take this table that I got all my stuff on right here, okay? And let's say that this table is too big to come through the door. I can't get it through the door when it's all assembled. So what I've got to do is I got to take all the parts and I got to bring them into the room, and then I have to assemble this table inside the room. That's what we have to do with glutathione. We have to assemble glutathione inside the cell. So we have to get it through the cell wall. Remember, we got to, if you blow on your sleeve, you can feel the air hit your arm. Well, if your sleeve is made too thick, if you got a big old heavy sweatshirt on and you try to blow through the sleeve, then you can't get any air to go through the sleeve and you can't feel any air on your arm. So it's super important that we can get the building blocks of glutathione through. And it is so important to have glutathione. There's so many things that glutathione does. Number one, it helps the immune system function better. It elevated glutathione levels enable the body to produce more white blood cells. Glutathione is a sort of food for the immune system. It is at the heart of all immune functions. So if you want to learn how to get better immunity, if you want to learn how to get a better immune system, this is what I was talking about the people in the hospital. And I know people, don't think I'm being insensitive about that, because I'm not. I keep a cross on my wall in my adjustment room about one of those people who died in 5 days from COVID. I'm not insensitive about that. And her daddy died 17 days later, and I take care of her mama every Tuesday. I'm not insensitive about that. I'm just saying that we could have taken the people who were at most risk and we could have tried to teach them how to decrease their risk by doing things like understanding how to get their glutathione levels up. That's one simple thing we could have done. And it's something we can do now. If you want to have a better immune system right now, if you want your immune system to work better, meaning if you want to have less colds and you want to have less chance of getting the flu and you want to have less chance of getting cancer and you want to have less chance of getting Alzheimer's, have a better immune system. What? Yes, all of it. All that stuff. You got a weaker immune system, you're going to have to deal with some crap. Okay? So we need glutathione for our immune system. Man, that took up the whole first half of this show. So we got to take a break. We're going to come back for detoxification and antioxidants right after the break. So if you got a question, send it to me, 806-794-0400. If you got a comment, send it to me in the chat box. We'll be right back right after these messages. You guys stick around with us. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. This is live on Thursday, October the 3rd. And we... Okay. It's amazing how fast these segments go by when you're getting into all this stuff at this deep level. Maybe I'm getting into it too deep of a level. Hey, if you watch the show and you think that this is like you think it's like too deep of a level, send me a message. If you think it's too boring because it's too simple, send me a message. It'd be great. I'd love to hear from you either way. Just make something up. You can just put it on there and make it up, and we'll just see how we're doing with all that stuff. I'm gonna hold up until we get back because I just want the radio listeners to hear this part too. Glutathione. Some of the things that can increase glutathione: undenatured whey protein, pomegranate juice. It's important to have your omega-6-3 ratio right. You guys know that. You guys have been around and listening for a long time. You know that. If you don't, that's why I talk about it. This is why I talk about fish oil right here, glutathione. Protecting of the mitochondria. Mitochondrial dysfunction. That's something we could do during the break. We could just type in mitochondrial dysfunction. Now they're going to talk about some sort of genetic thing. I wish I could go back and get all the. Well, here's one: mitochondrial dysfunction in cancer. That's a major one. When our mitochondria stop functioning, all cancers, according to Dr. Seyfried, all cancers have mitochondrial dysfunction. It's just part of the process. Mitochondrial dysfunction in autism, in aging, wrinkles. I got it with wrinkles. I got it with kidney disease. I mean, like there's all kinds of. As soon as you turn the power off to the cell just quits functioning properly. And that's basically what apoptosis is. It's programmed cell death. The cell has an ability on its own to kill itself. When it recognizes that it's not functioning properly, it will just create apoptosis and it will just eliminate itself. And that's something that will end up happening if you destroy that mitochondria. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're getting into it tonight. We're getting into glutathione, and I just want you to know it because I think it's super important. Glutathione we're talking about immune system function. It's also detoxifying. By monitoring glutathione levels, we can measure an individual's risk of falling prey to environmental toxins. Glutathione, these are all quotes coming from Jimmy Gutman, MD. Glutathione detoxifies a large number of pollutants, carcinogens, heavy metals, herbicides, pesticides, and radiation. Getting rid of that stuff out of your body is super important. That's what one of the things that glutathione does. It detoxifies you. And people are always talking about what kind of detox program should I go on? I think I should go on another detox program. I had a person tell me today that they stopped taking their vitamin D because they heard someone say that if you're not taking your magnesium with it, it doesn't do you any good. And then they said, no, maybe they meant vitamin K. And I'm like, that's part of the problem in the world today is we got so many people saying so many things, it's hard to know exactly what we're supposed to do. So we can sell all kinds of detoxification programs. We even have one for sale here in the office. And sometimes we actually use it. But most of the time we don't. Because if you just start eating right and you get your omega-6-3 ratio right and you eat your blueberries, you'll get your glutathione and you'll start detoxifying yourself. Okay. The next one is antioxidants. Glutathione is the most critical of all naturally occurring antioxidants. It is the master antioxidant because it replenishes the action of many other antioxidants. It's just vitally important. Okay. The average American is 25-1. And that's a big problem because if that cell wall gets too rigid and we can't get the building blocks of glutathione through the cell wall, if the door is rusted shut and I can't get the pieces of this table from the hallway into the room, I can't put the table together. And if I can't put the table together, then I can't put all this stuff on it to do the show. If you can't get the building blocks of glutathione through the cell, then you can't build glutathione. So you can't protect your mitochondria from free radicals. It's a piece. It's not all the pieces. It's just a piece. And it's a piece that no one else is going to tell you about. You're not going to hear this from your doctor. You're not going to hear this from your nurse practitioner. You're not going to hear this from your trainer down at the gym. You're not going to hear it from almost anybody on a podcast. You're not going to hear this stuff. It's some of the most profound stuff that I've ever learned. And maybe I'm the only one that got taught it, but I didn't make it up, right? We got to be able to protect the mitochondria, and we got to be able to get the glutathione in there. And we've read this article a bunch of times. For you guys that are new, I'll read it again. Experimental and Molecular Pathology in 2007. A wide range of seemingly unrelated disorders such as schizophrenia, bipolar, dementia, Alzheimer's, epilepsy, migraine headaches, strokes, neuropathic pain, Parkinson's, ataxia, TIA, cardiomyopathy, coronary artery disease, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, retinitis pigmentosa, diabetes, hepatitis C, and primary liver cirrhosis have all of those diseases have underlying pathophysiological mechanisms in common, namely the production of free radicals, the accumulation of mitochondrial DNA damage resulting in mitochondrial dysfunction. If the mitochondria aren't working right, well, let's just say it this way. Mitochondria not working right is a part of schizophrenia. Mitochondria not working right is part of bipolar disease. Mitochondria not working right is part of dementia and Alzheimer's and epilepsy and migraines. Mitochondria not working right is part of strokes and nerve pain and Parkinson's and ataxia and heart disease and coronary artery disease. All of those diseases have one thing in common: too many free radicals, a lack of antioxidant balance of the free radicals, causing mitochondrial dysfunction. If all those things have that same thing in common, to me, that's a big deal. And how do you stop that? What do you do? That's the biggest thing. How are you supposed to do that? Right? What are you supposed to do to handle that? And So we got to be able to get the building blocks through the cell wall, which means we got to have a cell wall that has the proper ratio of omega 6s and omega 3s. If we have that, we can increase the function of the cell. We can keep the power on of the cell, which means we can increase the function of the tissue, which means we can increase the function of the organ. What if you got kidney failure right now? Do you think if you had kidney failure right now, it would be super important for your kidney cells to work better or to work as good as possible? If you have liver failure right now, if you're dealing with liver failure right now, do you think it would be, man, would you give anything to try to get your liver cells to work better? Like, yes, you probably would, right? If your brain's not working. Alzheimer's, how many brain diseases do we have on that? Um, Schizophrenia, bipolar, dementia, Alzheimer's, epilepsy, migraines, strokes, neuropathic pain, Parkinson's disease, ataxia, TIA. I'll get and then I won't even give. I won't even give you the rest of those. Just those by itself. The brain is connected to all of them, but just think of all of those diseases right there that a person can develop by having mitochondrial dysfunction. And how many of those diseases could we make better or get rid of if we kept our mitochondria functioning as well as possible for as long as possible? I think we could. I think we could do that. If we really worked at it, we could do that, right? So, what should we eat? What should we eat? There's a whole planet, and it's such a deep thing. We were talking about it this morning in the 6 a.m. workout class. What should we eat? For centuries, people have eaten to survive and not starve. That's been the main thing. I was actually listening to. I went back and I was trying to find that. It's The Food That Built America. The Food That Built America is that documentary that I was talking about this week with that had Hershey, Mr. Hershey on there. And I tried to go back and watch it this morning, and I ended up watching a different one, a different documentary about Mr. Hershey, and such an interesting thing. We may get into it tomorrow night. Really, the dude was a really caring individual. He really cared about people, and he made 60. He had a wealth of $60 million in the like 1920s. That would have been like a billionaire these days. And he built schools and he built hospitals and he built houses and he took care of his employees and he did all. I mean, he was just a good dude. And he amassed a fortune of $60 billion by selling sugar to people. I don't know what to do with that. I've thought about that all day long. I don't know what to, that's like, you're such a good guy, but you just created diabetes in thousands and thousands and millions of people. Like you contributed, you sold drugs to make money, and then you used all the money to help things. Like one of my ladies was telling me how they sold almost 11,000 fried pies at the fair this weekend. They sold almost 11,000 fried pies. And then she went to telling me about how they use the money because the church is the one that sells the fried pies. And they use the money from that to go into their missions, and they take care of communities in our town, and they help kids that need stuff, and they have all kinds of programs that they donate that money to. And I was like, I mean, Pablo Escobar did the same thing. Pablo, he was super popular down there, wherever he was, Venezuela or Colombia or wherever he was. He would take all this money that he had and build soccer fields and stuff for the people, and like, it's great, yeah. But I don't really know how to reconcile that in my own brain. I don't know what to do about that. just make $60 million selling sugar. He went to Cuba, and he went to Cuba and and took like started uh, sugar fields and everything and refining sugar so that he could make sure that he had plenty of sugar for all the Hershey bars that he was selling. And then, 100 years later, we're the sickest society in the history of societies. And it's like, well, I don't know what to do with that. But that's not what I was going to tell you. Because after that, there was another documentary on DuPont. And I was like, I want to watch the DuPont thing for a second. And so I ended up watching that. But I had a little time in between my two fitness classes. And I was wanting to do some research stuff and kind of have some fun. So I watched the one on DuPont. And the DuPonts came over to the United States from France after they had gotten rich in France. And then they were about to get taken out by the have and the have-nots of France back in the day. They were the haves, and the have-nots were killing people. And so they decided to leave France, and they came over to the United States, and it was supposed to be like a 6 to 8 week boat ride, 6 to 7, something like that, week boat ride, ship ride from wherever they were in Europe to over here to the United States. Well, they had a big storm, and the captain got lost, and so they ended up, it was a 13-week, I think, ship ride. Well, they ran out of food. And they ran out of food, and they ended up, it says on the documentary that they ended up eating boiled rats on the ship because they had run out of food and they ate boiled rats. And that's my that's my point right there, is that people eat to keep from starving to death. Right? That's kind of what we have done. And so if you're a person that's eating to keep from starving to death, then eat whatever you can. Don't starve to death. Right? If Cokes and donuts are the only thing you got because you're about to starve to death, then drink a Coke and eat a donut. Don't starve to death because you don't have anything healthy to eat. Okay? I'm not advocating for that by any means, right? But I think we need a paradigm shift in our brain. I think we need a paradigm shift because we have eaten for a long time because we're hungry. But I think we're in a different place as people. We're not starving to death. Most of us. If you're starving to death, holler at me. I'll help you out. We don't want you starving to death, right? If you're in that bad a shape, then you're not going to care anyway. But if you're not in that bad a shape, now it's like, okay, now it really matters. Like we actually could try not to eat the things that we used to eat to keep from starving if those things are bad for us. Mr. Hershey didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know that he was going to end up having the sickest society in the history of societies. When he started that plant, he was just trying to make a living and take care of people and do his thing. He seemed like a really good dude. And so what should we eat? We should eat complex carbohydrates, complete proteins, keep our 6:3 ratio at 3-to-1 or less, and drink water. That's what we should do. That if you want to know what should I eat, that's what brought this whole week on. What should I eat? What are things that I could eat? And it's like I had a new patient today, and the new patient ran longer than I thought it would, which is totally cool with me because it goes as long as it takes. But I didn't get a chance to go eat lunch, so I had an RX bar and some raspberries. And tonight I'm going to have some grilled chicken and some sweet potato fries and a salad. That's what I'm going to have. I'm going to have complex carbohydrates. For the most part, those sweet potato fries are more complex than white potatoes. I'm going to have the complete protein in the chicken, and I'm going to take my fish oil tonight to make sure that I keep my balance right. Okay. So what are some of the things? Let me make sure, because I think I got a couple of. Yeah, those are the things that we should eat, and things that we should not eat. just some of the things that we should not eat. And these are somewhat controversial. The first one's not controversial at all, and that's high fructose corn syrup. Um, my biochemistry teacher in chiropractic school was a PhD in biochemistry. He taught at Parker College and he taught at UT Southwestern, which a lot of my professors did because they were PhDs in their prospective field. And he was like, "It's do not eat high fructose corn syrup. If you can keep from doing it, do not eat high fructose corn syrup. It's toxic. Plus, it's fructose, and it's if you guys don't know it, that is only metabolized in your liver, and it causes inflammation, and it causes VLDL cholesterol, and it causes, which is heart disease and all kinds of stuff, right? We don't want high fructose corn syrup. Grains are debatable. There's a whole bunch of people that think grains are fine. There's a whole bunch of people that don't think grains are fine. If any, they need to be limited. Dairy products, if any, they need to be limited. There's especially just drinking straight milk. If you want to decrease your allergies, if you want to, like, I'm just telling you, that's one of them. And then the last one is refined sugar or flour. Take those, and if you had to choose between those four things, if you could remove the refined sugar and flour and the high fructose corn syrup, you'd be way ahead of the game. Those two things would be massive. And if you start to look, just go to the grocery store and start reading the ingredients if you start, like, look for a loaf of bread and look how many loaves of bread have this. I mean, it's refined, enriched flour and high fructose corn syrup in some of the bread. It's like a lot of that stuff has those things in it. So those are things that just, if you could keep from doing it, stay away from it. This is one that I'm not going to get too far into this one because I know how controversial it is. Fresh, raw, whole cow's milk is a wonderful food for baby cows. Look at that. There's a picture. I got a picture on the social media for you guys on the radio of a little calf suckling on its mama. So we got a mama cow and we got a little calf. And that calf is the one that's supposed to be drinking that mama's milk. It's not supposed to be a human being sucking on that mama and getting that milk. Now, if you're starving to death, then you can drink that. But if you're not starving to death, you're not supposed to be drinking that. You're supposed to be drinking your own mama's milk. Because as soon as that little calf gets off of that cow, what is the calf going to drink? What is the next thing that calf is going to start drinking once they get off their mama? They're going to start drinking water, just like every other mammal on the planet. Now, I said we're not animals, but apparently we are mammals. And so, and we do originally drink from mama's milk, and then we're the only one that goes to another mama's milk. Every other one, I've never seen it. I've never seen that little calf get weaned off that mama and go over to a mare, a horse, a mama horse, and start suckling on a mama horse. Nope, that doesn't happen. That's not happening. Dogs don't, cats, it's not happening, right? Some of you are hearing this for the first time and you think I'm crazy. I'm not. I'm just sharing that with you. There's a bunch of information about it. Type 1 diabetes is one of the big ones. Cataract risk, ovarian cancer, artery disease, heart disease, autism and schizophrenia, some of that stuff is bad. When calcium goes up, blood levels of 125D goes down. We've talked about this, but I wanted to show it to you one more time. When calcium goes up and you get too much calcium, blood levels of 125D goes down because your vitamin D is helping you absorb your calcium. But if you have plenty of calcium, then you don't need the vitamin D. That's one of the things. So if your vitamin D levels are sufficient, you don't have to keep them sufficiently, your body will handle that mechanism right there. When 125D goes down, IGF-1 goes up. High levels of IGF-1 significantly increase the risk of colorectal, breast, and prostate cancer. Medical researchers have found. This came from the Harvard Gazette. High levels of IGF-1 significantly increase risk of colorectal, breast, and prostate cancer. You got prostate cancer? Why'd you get prostate cancer? Lots of different reasons. One of the reasons might be that you have high levels of IGF-1. Okay, if you have high levels of IGF-1, how'd you get them? Well, maybe because your vitamin D levels were low. Maybe because your vitamin D levels were low, your IGF-1 went up. And then you're going to say, all of a sudden, I got breast cancer, and I got prostate cancer, and I got colorectal cancer. Remember when we started this whole thing on Tuesday night? We showed pictures of Patrick Swayze and Farrah Fawcett. Yes, Patrick Swayze, pancreatic cancer, right? Farrah Fawcett, rectal cancer. It's like, look, I just want to share it with you. I just want to share with you these ideas that this is a thing. This is a thing. You get too much calcium, you drive down your vitamin D. You drive down your vitamin D, your IGF-1 goes up, and that's related to these increased cancers. Keep your vitamin D levels high. That's right. Keep your vitamin D levels high. Be very careful about all this calcium supplementation. I'm not saying you don't need some, but be careful about overdoing the calcium because there's a whole lot of things that get messed up when that happens, right? Insulin-like growth factor 1 is what we're talking about. The National Cancer Institute, the more IGF-1 there is in a man's blood, the higher his risk of cancer. So these are the citations. Science, 1998. The Harvard Physicians Health Study found that IGF-1 concentrations are strongly linked to prostate cancer. Lancet, serum IGF-1 has been found to be higher in women with breast cancer than in women without breast cancer. Science, cow's milk contains preformed insulin-like growth factor that is identical to human IGF-1. The Journal of American Diabetic Association, a study involving older adults found that the addition of 3 ounces servings per day of non-fat 1% milk for 12 weeks caused a 10% increase in IGF-1 levels. Let me say that again. And this came from the Journal of the American Dietetic Association, 1999. A study involving older adults found that the addition of 3 8-ounce servings per day of non-fat or 1% milk for 12 weeks caused a 10% increase in IGF-1. And we've already said that IGF-1 concentrations are strongly linked to prostate cancer and breast cancer, right? We might not know what that means, but that's the truth. This comes from the British Medical Journal. An earlier study showed similar results in adolescent girls. So that's where those studies came from. And we just dismissed them a lot of times. The first time I heard it, I dismissed it. I threw my pencil up in the air. I was like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Don't drink milk. Are you kidding me? Like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. And my teacher just looked at me and he's like, well, you could be dumb if you want to. You could be ignorant if you want to, but I'm just telling you what the science is. I'm just telling you what the research says. It comes from Science Magazine. I mean, that's supposed to be one of the top magazines, right? Comes from the Journal of the American Dietetic Association and from the British Medical Journal and from Lancet and from, which is like Harvard, I think, right? So those where I got those things from. You can take it or leave it. It's like, well, I got to get my child some milk. No, you don't. You got to get your child some water. I promise you. You take your child off of breast milk and just give them water. Don't give them milk. Plus, as soon as you start giving them milk, you know what you're going to find out? They're going to start getting ear infections. A lot of them start getting ear infections. Okay. I didn't mean to get off into that. So Let me see. Hey, Lewis, I hope you're doing good. Hope everything is going on good with you. Let me see if I got any questions. Nobody's got any questions. So we've got 1 minute left. We'll get into recipes tomorrow night. I got a bunch of them. I got pages full of recipes. I got books full of recipes. The reason I usually don't talk about recipes is because there are about 752,000 books written on recipes. If you really wanted healthy recipes, then you could find healthy you could find healthy recipes. Say that fast 10 times. Um, you can find that in 15 seconds. Like it's covering the world, right? But tomorrow night we are going to talk about some recipes. So I hope you guys got something from that. I know it's a little bit boring, but I hope it's okay. If you got any questions, send me a message. Otherwise, we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Have a great night. Hey, we got football on tonight, by the way.